Welcome back to another episode of the Cockerel Talk podcast. This week we'll be looking back at the 2-0 win for Tottenham in Thomas Frank's first pre-season game against Reading. We'll be looking at some transfer news, see if there's any developments on that front, as well as previewing Luton and welcoming back the players that are joining Tottenham Hotspur again, back for pre-season this week. So to kick off, we've got to look back at the first pre-season outing for Thomas Frank as Tottenham manager. A 2-0 win against Reading, a stadium which on the website said it was sold out. It was probably 80-90% full. But yeah, on the topic of Reading, it was quite nice for them to really, for their fans to be able to see, these Premier League caliber players again. It's a club that's been a bit of a mainstay, mainly in the Championship. We've seen some brief spells of them in the Premier League, but they really have gone through the ringer as a fan base. As I was talking to some of the Reading fans on the way there. But yeah, back to Spurs. A 2-0 win. Fairly routine. Some people impressed, some people still looked a little bit off it, which is natural for this sort of time of a pre-season. In terms of those that looked, I thought that were our best performers on the day. Mohamed Kudus, very, very good. Little cameo in the second half. I'm sure a lot of people will have seen that little give and go he did with Jed Spence, but it seems like he's just got a sprinkle of that star sort of quality that I think we've been missing in the attack for a while. And yeah, I think he's a player which really, really can excite Spurs fans this season, and I think he's even gonna excite a lot of neutral fans, just of the Premier League in general. Much like him, Doggy and Spence, very, very solid. Doggy was just superior down that left in the first half. But yeah, one thing I noticed tactically with Thomas Frank is that Pedro Porro sort of tended to be a bit deeper with the two fullbacks, and the Doggy would quite often, because I think it was Mikey Moore who's out on the left in the first half, he's finding himself coming inside, sort of becoming almost like another attacking midfielder next to Alfie Devine, and that really opened up space for Doggy just to get the ball and drive, which I think is his best quality as a fullback. His ability to just eat up space and just dribble with ease, really, and keep the ball. That sort of setup really got the best out of a Doggy, and from deep, Porro also was able to showcase some of his qualities on the ball. Put a few great balls into the box, to be fair to him. But him and Spence, this was the same day of the whole Spencer Doggy debacle with the kid and the autograph. I'm going to put out there, I literally don't care. So I'm not going to talk about it. Plus, it's just who cares? Really, the kid's met him now, he's made up. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, Spence done really well. Him and Kudus looked really, really exciting down that right. But it's like they're on the same sort of wavelength. Just the give and goes, the little new, yeah, exciting. I'm not going to read too much into it because it's a pre-season friendly. However, Luka Vuskovic, that opening 10 minutes, I was moved. I really was. In his first 10 minutes of the game, a goal, an assist, and he cleared one off the line. Obviously, those are the headlines, really, that you can draw from a centre-back performance. It's obviously not as glamorous in terms of headlines as it is for the attackers, but yeah, looked solid, really did. Part of me was sat there thinking that probably the best dribbler in our squad before Kudus was actually Van der Ven, and now probably our best goal scorer could be Vuskovic. But obviously that's hyperbole. But he looks solid. He really looks solid. Ashley Phillips was on the bench as well, but didn't get on. Nor did George Abbott, Yang Min Hyuk, or Brandon Austin. But I thought that was interesting straight away. That it's almost like he's moved above Phillips in that sort of the pecking order. Obviously, Dorrington's gone back to Aberdeen now, but I don't know. Um, I really don't know if he'll stick around. Purely because the likes of Koto Takai um, is obviously also coming in. Dragusin, I'm not sure how far ahead he is in his recovery, but you imagine he's going to be there. But by all means, I could definitely see a world where Vuskovic maybe plays quite a few of these preseason friendlies, maybe just 30 minutes or a half at a time, and maybe come the first day of the season, he might be amongst those names on the bench, and then maybe we might see him, you know, kept around as a bit of a squad option. I personally think it'd be best for him to go and get even more football under his belt. You think he played nearly 50 games in the Belgian league in all competitions last year at 17 years old. So I think another season of top flight football, if that's us just keeping his powder dry in a development sense, then I really don't hate that at all. I think that could be a good option. But either way, whether it's this season we see Luka Vuskovic in a Spurs shirt, or it's in 18 months, or in another 2 seasons, I think he's going to be a really, really good centre half. Um, some of the, I wouldn't say negatives, but just some of the nitpicking things. I think you've also got to weigh the cons and the pros together. Um, in the second half, I don't know if it was because Vicario was maybe right in front of me in terms of where I was in the stadium, but he just looked a little bit tetchy with the ball at his feet. Um, by all means, he's never been like an Edison type with his feet, but he's more comfortable than Lloris was, and yeah, maybe it's just a case of getting up for these friendlies after you've been on your holidays and after the emotional drainage of last season. But he looked just maybe one or two touches too many, and he looked a bit shaky. He'd get the passes off, but he didn't look convincing by any stretch. He made some good saves. There's one header where he tipped over the bar. But yeah, solid. In terms of the general play under Frank, um, obviously it's a very small sample size that you can sort of draw these conclusions from, but it it wasn't the most exciting, obviously, in the first half because that's sort of the first 45 minutes of the season. It sort of you could feel the players were sort of letting the body sort of ease into another season, which for not only Reading but Tottenham is going to be a really, you know, testing season physically with the amount of games that will be played. But it's very patient, bit slow. I was looking at it thinking I can sort of see the Gibbs White links now, or how we might look maybe a lot better with Madison or Kulusevski. Um, just able to just sort of flip that switch, put us on the front foot straight away. Um, and that's nothing against Alfie Devine. He's only still 20, which I find crazy. It seems like he's been around for years, but um, yeah, he had some good touches, but maybe it's one where when the players that are going to be the key players under Frank start to sort of play together this pre-season, maybe that's when we'll get a better idea of what it could look like by the time the Premier League season starts. But yeah, in terms of the build up, a bit slow. Um, and I was thinking, I wonder if obviously we've seen reports about Spurs being linked to defensive midfielder quite a lot this window. Some creditable sources, some not so creditable sources. We've seen some links with Adam Wharton, but the real strong ones have been about João Palhinha and maybe some about Douglas Luiz, but we've not seen too many of them. But you can see why, if the rumours were to be believed about Frank's number one pick in that defence midfield would be Adam Wharton, because he's a player that receives the ball, he receives it quite deep, and quite often yes, you're not going to just pick apart, a whole team just from your defence midfielder with one pass, or if you are, it's very unlikely. But he's sort of someone that just, when he gets a ball, he can just punch that ball in the middle and sort of catch the that sort of like in between the midfield and defence. You can sort of catch the players in that area off guard a bit, and then that just opens up a bit of space. On a smaller scale, we can see it. We've seen it really under Ange. Whenever Romero was in the team, quite often it would be him, and he'd sort of be waiting patiently, might maybe knock it a few yards, and then bang, it will be 10, 15 yards where it might have took maybe one midfielder out of the game, but it just changes that tempo. And I think that's where ultimately, if we are to get a new defensive midfielder, I wonder if Wharton isn't achievable, which I don't think he was really. I think maybe someone like a Douglas Luiz would probably be a better fit, but then again, I'm going off a very small sample size. And again, with João Palhinha, he still plays for Portugal. He still plays most games, if not as a bench player for one of the best midfields in Europe. And Bayern Munich really, really tried hard to get Palhinha out of Fulham a year before they actually did. And I can't remember what the fee was that he went for last year, but there was serious money being considered by Bayern Munich just to get Paulinho there, even if it meant overpay him for a year earlier, and it didn't happen. And look, it might not even happen with Spurs. We're seeing that, if reports are to be believed, we're interested in a loan, which I think is quite sensible. Obviously, looking at the defensive midfield, Basuma and Bentancur, both of them with a year left on their deal, and if you're looking at the squad and you're thinking about the sort of players that we can sell for money, that's sort of been our problem. And I think Bentancur or Basuma probably will leave this summer, but I think it would probably be Basuma more than Bentancur, but that's just a gut feeling. And then just on the transfer front, not a lot has happened really since Morgan Gibbs White was mooted, as they say, to join Spurs. I think it's just going to be one that really, really is going to drag out for quite a long time. I think there's more than what meets the eye with this one, whether it's just a case of Nottingham Forest maybe just trying to find a different buyer just so that he doesn't go to Spurs, or if it's they're maybe stalling to get more money out of Spurs or to get replacements in. Who knows? I really don't know where one's going to go. To be honest, the initial excitement and enthusiasm, it just feels completely drained out of me with this one. And it's nothing to do with Gibbs White, because I would love Gibbs White in the Spurs top. I think he'd be a really good sign-in. But it's just the way, it's just sort of the story of Spurs under Enoch, in terms of you've done an initial bit well with Kudus, and it's like, go on, just go and do that extra bit. And I don't know if all of our eggs are in the Gibbs White basket in the minute, and that's why we've not heard anything. But I think we can really build on this window, but time will tell whether we do. one transfer that has happened, Josh Keeley has now left the club permanently, gone to Luton. Um, it's really sort of got lost on me Saturday on the way out to Reading. I didn't really see anything on Twitter about it, and then all of a sudden I seen a tweet. It said it was about 2 hours ago from Spurs official that Josh Keeley was moving to Luton. It's a good move for him. He really impressed with Leyton Orient last year, by all accounts. And Luton, obviously a second relegation, but for that level, I think he's really a shrewd signing for them. And I could see them maybe, you know, if Luton aren't to progress as many of us, or not many of us, as many of the pundits around the Football League would think they would this season. I could see them selling him for big money, but back to Spurs. So Josh Keeley's left. He wasn't in the squad on Saturday for obvious reasons, and I think we might maybe see some of the sort of fringe players in pre-season start to maybe get a loan. The likes of, Young Min Hyuk, Ashley Phillips, Will Lancashire, even Jamie Donnelly, maybe Dane Scarlett. Who knows? I think in the next sort of week or two, we're going to see, I'd say, maybe two or three of them. Two or three of them, I think will get a loan. And returning to the squad this week, we'll have Archie Gray, fresh back from winning the England Under-21 European Championships. And we'll also be welcoming back Wilson Odobert and, for the first time as a permanent Tottenham player, Matisse Tell. I was at the game at Reading on Saturday. Impressed with Mikey Moore, actually, in the first half. He, now I think back to it, he had quite a few really nice dribbles, a few nice give and goes with a doggy. But when Son come on in the second half, obviously this clip's been surfacing after the game of him holding his back, and he really didn't look right. I really got the sense that something was up with him. Maybe it's an injury, and it's a bit of a weird one because obviously if he was to leave this summer, he definitely wouldn't do it before Spurs go to Korea. But he's earned the right to move on and do what he wants with his next club. But yeah, he really didn't look 100%. So I wonder maybe if throughout this pre-season we're going to see a lot more of Tell and Odobert, obviously both coming back because they got to the last four of the European Championships. I guess for pre-season, and obviously with the stuff with Son, if he is carrying a bit of an injury, that left wing position is up for grabs. Um, Obviously, if there is to be new additions, we'll see. But Brian Gill left out of the squad, which I don't think was any surprise that he wasn't going to be part of the pre-season tour that's coming up. But yeah, between Moore, Tell, and Odobert, I think that's three really good players to use in pre-season just to try and get the best out of them. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be another signing in time before Luton. I, again, I don't have any insider knowledge. I really don't, but it's just a gut feeling. But yeah, now that we're getting players back, players like Bergvall who sort of ended the season quite badly. Not badly in terms of fitness-wise, badly because he missed Bilbao. But those sorts of players to get integrated and against Luton Town, who are, you'd probably say, a bit of a step up from Reading, not least because they were a Premier League club 2 seasons ago. Now, obviously, both in League One. But as these games start building up, I think we'll start seeing some of the holes in the squad, maybe, as well as some of the areas where we look really strong. And I think that's probably where, once pre-season is over and we're approaching that Super Cup or that game against Burnley, that's where I think Spurs are going to act, because that's when I think Frank will be sure. And yeah, so I think until then, let's just wait and see what happens on the transfer front, and we'll look ahead to Tottenham's second pre-season friendly against Luton Town on Saturday at 3 o'clock. And until then, up the Spurs.